Lesson 4, topic, angle pair relationships. Learning target, I can label angles and their relationships in pairs. Vocab, we have complementary angles, which are two angles that sum to 90 degrees. And then we have supplementary angles, which are two angles that sum to 180 degrees. So we are going to find the missing angle measure. So for complementary over here, we know that these two angles need to sum to 90 degrees, which means the other angle will be 60 degrees. And this is an example of adjacent complementary angles. Which, reminder, adjacent means the angles touch or share a side. Our non-adjacent example, we know these two angles are complementary. If one is 35 degrees, the other would need to be 55 degrees to add to 90. Supplementary angles, we have an adjacent example. So they touch, they share that side. We know the sum needs to be 180. So if one of the angles is 130, 180 take away 130 is 50 degrees. And our last example, non-adjacent angle, we have 70 degrees for one of the angles, which means the other angle would be 110, because 110 plus 70 equals 180. Couple more vocab words for you. We have linear pair. So a linear pair, if you see the word line in linear, a linear pair are two adjacent, so touching, angles that create a line. So here we have angle A and angle B. You can see they create a line. They share a side. So the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B would be equal to 180. Because a straight line or a straight angle equals 180. So a linear pair, they are supplementary. Add to 180. And they must be touching. They have to be adjacent, sharing a side. Our other pair of angles are vertical angles, and these ones are non-adjacent angles formed by two straight lines intersecting. So you can see we have line 1 here, line 2 here, so they intersect, and it's the non-adjacent ones, so it's the ones that don't share a side. So it's the opposite ones. So this angle and this angle, like 1 and 2, those would be vertical angles, and then 3 and 4. Those would be vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. They have the same measure. So 150 and 150, and 30 and 30. Let's practice using vertical angles and linear pairs. So we are going to find the measures of the given angles, angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we look, we can see we have two lines that are intersecting, which means we do have vertical angles, so those opposite pairs, so angle 2 and angle 4 would be a pair of vertical angles, so they would be congruent. And also on the other side, we have angle 1 and angle 3. So those would also be congruent. So if we look, angle 1 and angle 3, their measurements don't have the same variable. One has a y variable and one has an x variable. So that relationship isn't going to help us to solve for one of our variables, which we're going to need in order to solve for the measure of the angles. So if we look at angle 3 and angle 4, they both have that x variable. So we need to figure out their relationship. So their relationship is a linear pair because they're on this straight line that's shaded in blue, and they share a side. So this is a linear pair. Touching angles that create a straight line. So I know that the relationship for a linear pair is that the two angles are going to add to make 180. So I can set up an equation that takes the measure of angle 4, 3x, adds it to the measure of angle 3, 8x plus 26, and sets it equal to 180. I would like you to solve that equation right now. So you should have gotten x is 14. So now that we know the value of x, we can solve for the value of the measure of angle 3 and the measure of angle 4 by just substituting that value of x in for x. So we have 8 times 14 plus 26 will give us the measure of angle 3. So we can use our calculator to evaluate that. So we have 8 times 14 plus 26, and we get 138. So the measure of angle 3 is 138 degrees. And then we should also see that because of vertical angles, the measure of angle 1 will also be 138 degrees. Now we can solve for the measure of angle 4 by again replacing that x with 14. So we have 3 times 14. We can use our calculator again if we need to. 3 times 14 is 42. So the measure of angle 4 would be 42 degrees. What would the measure of angle 2 be? Would also be that 42 degrees because of those vertical angles. All right, last piece here is our angle addition postulate, which states that if we have a pair of adjacent angles, so like we have here, they share that side BD, then we can say that the measure of angle ABD plus the measure of angle CBD is equal to the measure of angle ABC. So it's equal to the measure of the whole. So we can do that 60 plus 40 and get that 100 for the measure of the whole angle. So our example is that given that angle ABC is a straight angle, so remember a straight angle just means it sums to 180 degrees. Find the measure of angle ABD and the measure of angle DBC. So I can use the angle addition postulate to say that this measure plus this measure is equal to that whole. And I know the whole is 180 degrees because it's a straight angle. So we're going to solve this equation for x. So combine our like terms, 5x plus 2x is 7x. 10 minus 5 is positive 5 equals 180. Subtract 5 on both sides, you get 7x equals 175. Divide by 7 on both sides, and we get x equals 25. Now that you know the value of x, I would like you to solve for the measure of angle ABD and the measure of angle DBC, and check your answers in Edpuzzle.